Hey everybody, welcome back to new video on this channel, and today we look once again into the topic of conditional props in Vue.js. Yep, let's go. Some of you might have heard about conditional props already. I mean, at least if you've seen my video about 5 missing features in Vue.js, then yeah, you definitely did. For everyone else, conditional props, the idea is to say, okay, we can have one prop or another prop, but not both together, or a certain combination of property values that are only allowed. So basically we restrict them with, well, TypeScript. There is a feature request tracking that. So let's quickly jump into that and then see how we can make it happen right now. The issue 8952 in the Vue.js core repository tracks that feature. It's also been not too long actually, 10th of August 2023, and it has quite some upvotes. I also gave another example given that one here. But the good part is, as just mentioned before, well, it is kind of a missing feature, but there are workarounds to make it happen. They involve a little bit of TypeScript gymnastics, so that's the unfortunate part. So if you only use JavaScript, well, you have to use TypeScript to make that actually happen. So you can't say render only the prop A or the prop B, but not both together in plain JavaScript with Vue.js right now. Maybe in the future it's possible when the feature request has been implemented, and then you can also do it in plain JavaScript. So we have to live with a little bit of TypeScript juggling for now. Let's take a look what you actually want to build, and then let's just do it. We are in the Vue SFC playground here, and of course all the link to the playgrounds and code examples in the description below as usual. And so what do we want to do? We have two components that we want to implement, one with nested conditionals, so to say. So we have a combination of properties that are valid and some that are not valid. So let's say we have these, okay, color normal, appearance text is all fine, color white, outline, all good. But we want to say, okay, if the color is white, then only the appearance outline should be valid. So we see down here, TypeScript is throwing if we say white in appearance text. So this is what we want to achieve, and it works right here. And we can also say, okay, no color is allowed if we take appearance break. Let's quickly add a little test here and just put appearance break down here. And we also see maybe with a different color, like, I don't know, primary, let's say, then this should also throw, and it does exactly. So these are scenarios where we just want to have, okay, certain conditional values. And then of course we have just a top level scenario, say we want the prop one or the prop other, but not both together. So this is what we want to build. And before we do this, you might wonder, why do we actually need this? Well, the first example kind of made it clear already. If you have, let's say, a button, you might want to say, you know, we have certain variants, certain sizes, certain properties, and we can't just use them all together. Ideally, you want to make sure that there is no invalid state possible. That's a pretty good practice to make your types as strict as possible, which also means, okay, you can only use a certain combination and not all the permutations of your properties together, if that's what your design system says or your logic. Same if you say, okay, I have a component and it could be, I don't know, a link or a button, but not both together. So you can't mix and match the properties of a button and a link, but either. And in TypeScript, this is of course already pretty easy possible. So, well, with Vue SFCs, it's a bit more tricky, but let's dive into it and start from a fresh slate, just with what we've just seen, copied over, and then write in the components. All right, here we go. We have basically what we've seen before, but without any kind of errors. So we have to make the bad examples bad and let the good examples be good. And we start with the nested conditional part because I think that's more or less the easiest. So let's jump in there, and it's of course empty. So what we want to define is we basically want to say, okay, we want some kind of conditional props. And of course, at some point you can mix them with props that can be there or not be there, no matter of the kind of state. So like some optional props, some required props, that's all fine. So let's just say, let's name this, I don't know, conditional props. And now we want to have a list of options. So we said, okay, first of all, the default case. So this will be a union. And let's say the default case is we can have color, which could be normal, or I don't know, primary and secondary. Pretty standard stuff. That's also optional if you want to. So the default color can be set somehow, but we don't have to keep it optional. And the appearance, also same idea. We can say normal or default or whatsoever. And we want to have outline or text. We could also add the break here from before, but actually this doesn't really fit because no color should be available there. Also here, we can make it optional, and let me quickly replace these with proper pipes. Here we go. Okay, so far so good. Let's check out what the app.vue has here. Looks kind of fine. We didn't define any props yet, so nothing can happen. Let's say define props and just put in conditional props here. Of course, we want to have that as a type argument, as generic, and save this. And here we see already an error coming from over here, missing required pop color. So there are some points that says, okay, that doesn't really work, but that's correct. These have to be fixed. So let's do that. And also here we see, okay, white is not in there. So let's add the color white. The question is, no, we don't want that because this is the bad example. And the right example is to add white and outline together. So let's do this and go for the other case, which is, as we described here, only outline appearance when the color is white. So only that combination should be used. And then we can say, okay, color should be white and appearance should be outline. Doesn't seem too complicated. If we format it nicely like this, then we also kind of see the structure of that. Auto formatting will kind of destroy that, but we have this as a case or this as a case, and we will add some more. So now we see, okay, nice. Color, white, appearance, outline seems fine, but now the bad things also don't break. It's all just strings. So this kind of fails already. And that's a bit weird, right? So we clearly said it should only be white and appearance and not neither. How can we fix that? So this is the tricky part here. We can't fully fix that without using generic components. So what we have to do is here, we have to use a generic and just pass in anything. T, unused, it doesn't matter much. If we go back now, then we see, oh my God, it's actually throwing errors again. And this here is throwing a different error saying, hey, look, this doesn't fit anymore. Types of property appearance are incompatible. So what exactly happened here? And the answer is this is a type restriction in Vue right now for a define component function, which is used under the hood when your component is compiled. But if you use generic components, then this is basically an opt-out there. So with generic components, you get rid of the type limitations. And of course, it's not like I dove deep into the Vue code and found it out somehow. No, actually, once again, it is Johnson Chu who gave that hint here already in April saying, okay, this is a type restriction of define component. And as a current solution, you can use generics. So it will bypass define component and define the component as a functional component under the hood. Doesn't change anything for performance, but now it makes things work. And usually this is the hot secret if you want to use conditional props. You have to go for the generic components, even if you don't use the generic at all. When I read it back in April, I was like, wait, that's strange. But I tried it out and we'll come to that in a bit. Let's finish our example first. Now, the only thing we have to add is the appearance break part. And this is also an easy thing, right? We can just say, okay, here we go, appearance break, and we are kind of done, one might think. Let's format that, all good. Going here and seeing, okay, fine, that works, looking great. But what if we add another example here that fails and saying color is ABC? So none of the primary options that we had before from our first example, like no normal, primary, secondary, but like a random string or I don't know, a number or so if we even want to. So this all works. So we're not really done. So also here, if we keep that as a number, just as a text, we see, okay, this doesn't really fail. We want it to fail. And why doesn't it fail? Well, it doesn't fail because we don't tell exactly in this example that the color prop is disallowed. We do this by saying in type length, okay, color never. So in this way we say, this should not be there at all. Now it says missing required prop color because we also have to set an optional. So we basically say if it's not there, that's fine. But if it's there, it shouldn't be there at all. Telling TypeScript in a clever way, don't use the color prop at all, only the appearance. So let's see what that means for our code. And here we have it. We straight away get an error saying, okay, number is not assignable to normal, primary, secondary, white. That's correct. So now it would want us to go with these options. And if we say, okay, we, for example, say we go for white here, then we have the error for the component itself saying, hey, this doesn't fit to our options that we provide in the union. So it's not really the most straightforward error message here, but it does what it should. So we leave this as the bad quote unquote example that works. And that's great. Also, I think that's a good point to mention that this is also one of the reasons why conditional props should be improved. It can work with a bit of a workaround, but the error messages are not really clear, and someone who is maybe new to Vue or also not a, I don't know, TypeScript intermediate / expert, it's a bit tricky, not only to understand, but also to write. Okay, we can now deal with the top level conditional component just the same way we did with the nested conditional. So let's go in here, let's straight away say, okay, we use generic, it's unused, and we define our props. We can even do it inline straight away and say, yep, we have the following thing. 1 should be, for example, the number 1. And we have another option, so another member of the union saying other. That should be a string, for example. And then we say, okay, in each of them, the other one is not set, or so to say, it is defined as never, so it will be not allowed at all. And also making them optional, and here we are. Okay, so far so good. Let's check our app.vue, and we see all the things failing either on prop level or on component level, and the other things working well. And of course, we still get autocomplete, so if we write other here, then we can write a string here, or if we write 1 here, for example, we also have the correct type safety. So what do we learn out of this video? Well, first of all, conditional props are possible. It is a little bit of a workaround here and there. For top level, it is pretty easy, but especially if you have combinations, it can be pretty tedious. And especially because you can't use helper types. So you could also say, okay, for all our wonderful nested configuration. So let's just quickly jump back again. Let's just imagine you would have more properties, not only like color and appearance, but like 3, 4, 5 other properties that are only available in one of the variants. You'd have to type them with never all the time in all the others. So let's say there's another thing that is required, I don't know, down here, say not type, that's not good for a button, but let's say other value, and that would be, I don't know, a number. Then we have to go through and say, okay, here and here, other value is not only optional, but also never. And we have to go through this again and again, do this everywhere for every new type. Now, one could say, wait, there is probably some TypeScript magic that would help us working around this, right? So the answer is, yeah, correct. And yes, in this wonderful conditional properties issue, well, there is someone who tried out and said, look, there is a wonderful TypeScript playground with a solution that you can have with like a without type and XOR type where you put in, well, types, and they are just like being set mutually exclusive. So you can say, hey, this one without the other, setting things to never, that all works. The problem is it works fine on TypeScript level, but if you try this in Vue itself, I mean, we can just do this real quick. This will sadly fail. So if you go back to our Vue playground here and say, you know what, we don't do this other value here and here. We have just this, wonderful. And let's go to our top level component and just say, okay, we have these two options. So let's say type A equals, type B equals, and then we have this helper code in a second, no worries. And let's just say, you know what, we can also just keep this. We have that straight away as props of XOR. We don't need type A and B. And if we just pass this one in here, that basically says, hey, give us basically 1 where other is never and other where 1 is never. So what we had before, basically, we see there is an error down here in our Vue component because for some reason on a type level, things are correct, but the Vue SFC can't really, well, parse it. So it would be really great if we at least have some kind of helper type to make that happen, maybe before a full-fledged integration also works in JavaScript. So the TLDR, once again, is conditional props work, but they require a lot of effort to make it work. Once you have them, it's more or less clear, but you probably need a little comment or a link to this video or the issue saying, hey, look, you need to add never for the things that you don't use because you can't use helper types and so on and so on. But I really recommend that pattern, especially to avoid invalid states. You really don't want to have these. You want to have only the states that are possible in your application. For more complex components with different props, I think that's even more ideal. But yeah, don't forget to comment things and also make sure to, well, leave a comment in the conditional props issue, at least like a thumbs up, a comment if you want to add your use case, or like a thumbs up or heart if you think that should be implemented. Other than that, check out, as usual, the code examples in the description if you just want to copy and paste, try things out around that. Check out late stage Vue episode where, well, Justin Schrader comes to us, the author of FormKit, and we talk about, well, forms, why they're difficult, and also some hot takes. It's getting spicy. And of course, all the other videos are there. So I hope you have a wonderful weekend or day whenever you're watching that. See you next time, and happy hacking.